There has always been a big part of me that gets very excited whenever I see elements of photography wriggle their way into video games. Pointing and shooting is about as age-old of a mechanic as you can get, but you're usually doing it with something like a gun or a bow. You're firing off shots and taking out enemies. But it's the moment that I get to shoot things on film. That's when the camera nerd in me really gets to go wild. Cinematography was one of my major fields back when I was in film school, and photography is an interest of mine that has stemmed from that. I mean, at the end of the day, cinematography is really just photography but in motion, and if my e-reader video is telling of anything, it's that setting up nice looking shots is one of my favorite things. When talking about photography in video games, most people run directly to Pokemon Snap, but I don't know, that game just never really did it for me. Everybody loves this game, but I don't know, being on rails is what always killed it for me. It just never gave me the freedom I was looking for. I want to walk around and explore and take pictures of everything I want to, not just the things the game wants me to. Beyond Good and Evil was one that I always really appreciated for that. Taking pictures is a major mechanic of that game, and unlike Pokemon Snap, you can actually freely move around to do it. But of course, it's still a single and simple mechanic in a much greater game. There is still a lot more to photography than just this. There are some other oddball games that had some pretty interesting photography mechanics, like Lost via Damus of all things. Yeah, that cruddy game based on the Lost TV show. It was used in these flashback sequences for snapping a precise moment in a looping memory. But again, while it was a really cool thing, it was only just a minor moment in a subpar license game. I guess there was also that Africa game on PS3, a game about photographing wildlife, but I never really heard much fanfare surrounding it. Photography in video games is like that one pipe dream I've always been chasing. I've seen so many glimpses of it, so many almost, but nothing that really scratched that itch the way that I needed. Until now, because buddy, let me tell ya, I've finally done it. I finally discovered a really good video game that is entirely about that. Umurangi Generation is an indie game all about photography, set in the shitty future. And buddy, I tell you, it does not pull its punches. This isn't just pointing and shooting. This is actual photography. You're swapping lenses, adjusting depth of field, rolling the camera's body. You ever wedge yourself into a really awkward and uncomfortable position just to hold the camera at that perfect angle? That is Umurangi. Now, you could just be boring and paint a photorealistic world and just drop the player in it with a camera, but Umurangi instead uses a hyper-stylized, cartoony art style. The inspiration from Jet Set Radio is pretty damn obvious. Expect those blocky, low-res, cel-shaded models, and they look glorious. The soundtrack takes a very similar approach, being full of experimental tracks, plenty of which have a lot of fun sampling around with things. I noticed some Silent Hill samples in this track here, which is pretty freaking cool. Though while it is similar to Jet Set's with its generally experimental vibe, the music's direction is much more chill than the loud party-like direction Hideki Naganuma usually takes, which can also be said for the visual style as well. Neither feel like a carbon copy, yet something entirely new done with a similar style. Jet Set Radio is one of my favorite looking games ever, and I think it is high time I played something that tries to do a little bit more with that style. Each level is a small sandbox which you'll be free to explore, looking for a grocery list of things to take pictures of, and once you can snap all the required shots, you can then find the delivery point and finish the level. So, for example, the game might need a picture of 2 stereos, so you'll have to find a position in the level where you can line up a shot that has both of those things in it. It's kind of like a game of I Spy, except with a camera. They tell you what they want, and you gotta find out where and how to make that shot happen. And there's usually multiple ways to get many of these shots, so it's not like you're looking for a needle in a haystack or anything like that. You might need a shot of 7 birds altogether, but there's gonna be so many birds placed throughout the level that you have a ton of freedom to set up that kind of shot in a ton of different ways. You'll also have to approach certain shots with specific methods. Some shots will require you to be close to them, while others might have to be in a certain lens. This can prove quite challenging because while one type of shot might be easy to get on a standard lens, doing the same on a telephoto lens is way more difficult. You gotta find that sweet spot that's simultaneously far enough away and also offers a view of everything you need. You're also free to take pictures of literally anything you want, even if it's not on your objective list. Each shot will also reward you cash, depending on the content of the photo. The game's tutorial explains very comprehensively what exactly each picture is graded on, but it also just encourages you to do whatever you think looks cool because in the end, art is subjective. So you can try to earn cash by framing it a certain way or whatever, but with how much cool shit I'm always surrounded by in this game, I find it very difficult to be thinking about a score the game's gonna give me. No, I'm thinking about how freaking cool this picture's gonna look, dude. Sound design in this is like really good. Not even just the soundtrack, but the sound effects, all the clicks and clacks of the camera and the shutter going, even the way you hear your keys jingling in your pocket when you jump. After you snap a picture, you'll then get all these sliders to play with. Color balance, contrast, hue, tons of stuff that you'll unlock throughout the game. By the end of this thing, there's so many sliders that you can make some seriously cool looking stuff all entirely in camera. Oh dude, and revisiting older levels with new lenses and stuff like that, man, you realize just how much more you can do with these environments once you have new methods of viewing them. I think a lot of people don't quite realize just how important it is to have multiple lenses. Right now I'm filming on a 20mm, that's kind of like the standard wide-ish lens that I film all of these talking shots on for Nitro Rad, but I also have a 45mm for those prettier close-ups. This stuff gets really close in, makes it really crisp and pretty. All of those e-reader shots were filmed on this bad boy right here, but I also got a 12mm. This is kind of like a wider lens, not quite fisheye, isn't like warping the image yet, but it's very wide without doing that. And finally, got my telephoto lens for all those zoom shots. I bounce between these four guys non-stop when I'm filming stuff because they can all make an image look radically different from each other. So for the sake of perspective, I have taken the exact same picture on all four of my lenses. You might notice the light warps a bit differently depending on the level of zoom. Some comparisons is a little more subtler, some ones is a little more exaggerated. It's because different lenses can change the field of view because the distance between the lens and the subject are different. Two different lenses will see a very different version of the same object. Here's a really cool example. Have you ever taken a selfie on a phone and thought it looked really strange or unnatural or anything like that? Don't worry, you look fine. It's because phones' inner cameras often have these very wide lenses and it looks terrible, dude. Like here's me taken on a 45mm with my actual camera and it looks very natural, right? Because a 45mm lens is actually fairly close to what our human eyes naturally perceive. And now here's me on my phone's inner camera. The difference is night and day. I look like a goblin or an alien or something. I look strange and weird and terrible. Dude, listen, phone cameras are not a good reflection of what human beings look like, or what the world looks like even. The world is a beautiful place, and we deserve better lenses to view and share it with. You have no idea how much something as simple as a camera's lens can completely warp your perception of what things look like, and that is something that Umurangi thoroughly understands, and it gives you all the tools you need to share this beautiful lo-fi world in every artsy and fun way you can imagine. Now, while I am incredibly impressed by the amount of options you do have here and how close it is to simulating real photography, it does come with a number of limitations. Obviously, the depth of field is fairly primitive and isn't as nuanced as it is in real life, but with it being a game that's made by like one guy, that's pretty expected and completely excusable. You also don't have any control over things like ISO, shutter speed, or f-stop, but I guess that is a necessary sacrifice to keep a degree of simplicity so the game doesn't become inaccessible to people that are unfamiliar with real-world cameras. But while those two are completely understandable, there is one thing that did actively bother me, and it's a very simple thing. I spent the entire game wishing I could do it. I can't get low enough. You got two levels of height, standing and crouching, that's it, nothing in between and nothing lower. There's so many times I just want to position the camera between those two levels, or maybe get even lower, lay on the ground and get as low as I can. Laying on the ground is something I do a lot when I'm taking pictures or filming videos. I mean, look how much cooler you can make a shot look when you're this low, when you can be level with it instead of looking down on it. I can forgive not having that thorough vertical control, but the game does desperately need a crawl button, and that is something that is quite standard with FPS games, so I don't feel like I'm asking for too much with that one. And that's really the only thing I felt the game needed. Otherwise, this is pretty much everything I've been looking for all these years. I really don't think the game could have picked a better setting too. Again, similar to Jet Set Radio, the locations are all very urban, but you can't forget this is the shitty future, one full of civil unrest, government control, and a generation that feels like they have no voice. And there's a lot of really great world building here too. Each level doesn't really have that much actively going on. The NPCs just kind of stand in place and don't really interact with their surroundings at all, yet these still moments of urban life are filled to the brim with little nods and hints of what exactly is happening in this world. Graffiti and vandalism, memorials, military propaganda, and an overarching feeling of despair as UN soldiers patrol the streets and run civilian checkpoints. I'm not going to spoil why there's military presence here because the reason behind it is kind of ridiculous and cool as hell, but while it channels that exaggerated anime neo-apocalyptic vibe of things like Evangelion and Akira, it also channels a very real generational struggle. And with everything happening in the world right now, from COVID-19 to the very real civil unrest we're currently experiencing, I don't think these themes have ever been more relevant. And if you ask me, I think art is the most powerful when it means something real, when it stems from something somebody truly feels strongly about, whether it's something small and fun they're simply passionate about, or a sobering reminder of how cruel the world we live in can be. And that's part of why Umurangi's setting and themes are so incredibly effective. Umurangi Generation is one of the best creative outlets I've had in a while. There's been too many times I was wandering a level, completely forgetting that I had a list of things to do, and instead I just wanted to snap pictures that look cool as hell. And the game even outputs all of the pictures you take in high res on your PC, so it's incredibly easy to share your findings. But even if you're more interested in meeting those objectives than you are playing around and getting artsy, there's still tons to love here. You've got a timer, and you can get a better score if you do all of the objectives in as little time as possible, along with a good slew of bonus objectives, like fitting all 4 of your friends into a picture or recreating a postcard. I had a blast just taking pictures in general, but replaying the game with a Tony Hawk mindset, doing it all as fast and effectively as you can for a high score, that's also super fun. Like, this game has multiple layers of replay value. Overall, the game isn't super duper long. It only took me a couple of hours to see the credits, and it certainly left me wanting tons more, dude. Like, I really could not get enough of this thing. But again, the replay value is incredibly solid, especially with how you can return to old levels with new gear, so if you wanted to get a lot out of this game, you certainly can. This game kicks so much ass. It is so freaking cool, it is so much fun, and it is available right now on Steam for just 15 bucks. I'll have a link down below where you can check that out, but the developer also told me there is a Switch version planned down the road, so if playing games on PC ain't your style, you can always keep an eye out for that Switch port. Whether you're like me and you're already into photography, or you're somebody who's not all that familiar with it and wants to try it out, I could not recommend this game to you enough. It is a game that not only encourages you to stop and smell the roses, but also to capture the roses and share them with everybody. If this game can inspire anybody to start taking pictures and get interested in something cool, I think that's only a good thing. I know a lot of you probably only have the camera on your cell phone, and while I think phone cameras are a crime against humanity, it would be childish of me to gatekeep something I love. I mean, I used to edit with a damn VCR when I was a kid. You gotta start somewhere, right? If you don't have what you need, use what you got. And if that's how you gotta get into something, don't let anybody knock you for it. So get out there, start taking some cool pictures, dude. Whether it be in the real world or in the shitty future of Umurangi. And maybe show your friends. You might even be able to inspire them to do the same thing. I think art should be inspiring, so let's all inspire each other.